Hey, you guys, you are back with Hanging with Langan. This is part two of my interview with comedy writing great Alan Zweibel, an original SNL writer, co-creator of It's Garry Shandling Show, consulting producer on Curb Your Enthusiasm, 700 Sundays with Billy Crystal. This is his book, Laugh Lines, My Life, Helping Funny People Be Funnier. Now, before I get to him, what I wanted to say to you is if you're enjoying these shows, you're enjoying chats that I bring to you with Alan Zweibel and so many other great people, from academics to alcoholics and everything in between, support the show. You can do it for as little as $5 a month at Patreon. You don't want to keep it going after a month. That's up to you. That's up to you, you cheap person. Anyway, over my shoulder, Don't Make Me Hate You t-shirts available at maureenlangan.com. I have a store there, a lot of other things too available. And if you subscribe at Patreon at $25, I will send you one of those. But anyway, thank you so much. I appreciate it. You can always make a donation at Venmo or PayPal. This is it. I mean, you guys are the ones who support this show, so thank you. And give it a good review on Apple or Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Only good ones. I don't need you sabotaging me. I am working like a dog. All right, so when I last left Alan in episode 1, I asked him, as a writer, do you ingratiate yourself to celebrities, particularly when you first started to get some renown? Is that the word, renown? Yeah. And he said, yeah, oftentimes it works when you try to make a joke with a famous person, particularly with Paul Simon. So we'll pick it up from there. But he also talks about a time it backfired. And this is with somebody who is a huge, iconic star, a huge, huge singer and movie star. And it just didn't work. He tried to have the connection and it didn't work. All right, so we're going to pick up here, and here we go. There's a part in your book where you make a joke to Paul Simon, and I'd like you to tell that. And he asked, has any ever backfired on you trying to ingratiate yourself to a celebrity before, just trying to connect? You're a young guy, you're trying to do your thing.
The Paul Simon thing was, he was the biggest idol I've ever had. Growing up on Long Island, Simon and Garfunkel were kings, okay? And so when we first started SNL and I met him, I was just in awe, just in awe of him. I couldn't believe that I met Paul Simon, and we became very friendly. And as a matter of fact, on one of my David Letterman appearances, I read from a previous book of mine where I plagiarized the words to The Boxer for a poetry writing class in college, which I did. And then the teacher wanted me to come up and read my poem to the class, and they all started singing along eventually. I couldn't believe that I met him, and I was I was nervous. He made me feel comfortable, and I tested the waters with him. I guess when we all left the restaurant, we were standing on a street corner in Manhattan waiting for the light to change. And I just looked over and I said to Paul, who's like somewhat vertically challenged, I said, Paul, you don't know it yet, but it's raining. Now, have any backfired? I'm sure there have. I wasn't expecting, so I'm just computing, What I did do all along the way was I've had a pretty good gauge as to, do I know this person well enough to say this, or should I wait a week?
Okay. Wait a week.
So I would have to think about, and I'm sure there have been some misfires, but it was always along the lines of, do I know them well enough to make this joke? Okay, because I already assumed they had the sense of humor. Oh, I once asked, Robin, that's my wife, and I once had dinner over Barbra Streisand's house. This is many years
ago.
In LA.
Holy moly.
She wanted me to rewrite a movie she was doing. I ended up not doing it. But
Wow.
We had dinner over a house. There were maybe 10, 12 people around this dinner table. I was sitting next to her. So I was sitting between her and Robin. And we were talking. We were getting to know each other. She gave us a tour of her house, which was amazing. And then we went to the Geffen Theater in LA to see one of Steve Martin's early plays. I drove Barbara Streisand there. Robin sat in the back seat. Barbara Streisand was sitting in the passenger seat. We're talking. Now we go into the Geffen Theater, and like I said, I'm sitting between, just like at dinner, I'm sitting between Robin and Barbara Streisand, and we're talking. And now all of a sudden, the lights in the theater come down. The play is ready to begin. There's a lull. I don't know, maybe somebody behind the curtain one of the actors wasn't on their mark or something. There was a little bit of a lull. I look at Barbara Streisand and I go, "You're a singer, right?" Okay. And she looked at me like either she was talking to an idiot or she was scared that she suddenly, in that half a second, lost her popularity. And I knew right away that, well, we're not going to, I'm not, if you can't fool around and have fun about yourself, I don't know if this is going to work,
Did you find her to be humorless? I mean, obviously in that moment, but did you get a sense that she had a wit or a humor, or she took herself too seriously?
I don't know if that was it. I didn't get to know her well enough, but let's just say we were on different planes when it came to what made us laugh.
I always find, like, when you rib somebody, or like I'll take the piss out of them or jab them, to me, it's a sense of endearment. It means I feel comfortable enough around you.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's a litmus test. You know what I mean? It's like, all right, I'm going to say this joke. I'm going to do this thing. Do you like it? If you don't like it, maybe I did it too soon in our relationship. If you'll never like it, I don't know if we could be friends.
Well, that is a litmus test. There's a couple things I want to talk about, projects that you're on. But before I do that, I want to talk about you and I mean, both been at the Friars Club. We know people who have been very established, and maybe their careers aren't at the height that they once were. And, even, you're welcome, Mark Pitta. He says, thank you to you, Alan Zweibel, for answering his question about Paul. We love you, Mark. Well, I do. I don't know if he'll love you, but he'll meet you one day.
No, I love him already. I need.
He's famous. He's one of the best hosts I've ever seen on the planet. Like,
great.
Oh, hysterical. So anyway, the thing is, look, we all age, and I'm at an age too, post-period, pre-death, and we all get to a point in our life where our value is shifted. And the thing is, what you write about in the book, and I agree with this, you can only write your truth where you are. You can't, if I could turn back time, we can't freaking turn back time. And we have bared witness to people with a bitterness around us who are established. Talk a bit about that.
Well, that's a great area to get into, because even at an early age, when I was writing for those Catskill guys, there were a couple of them who, there was one night at the Friars Club, early 70s, where in those days, Engelbert Humperdinck, there's that name again, and Tom Jones would tour. And I think their visas allowed them to tour for like 180 days before they had to go back to wherever they, England or whatever. And they had an audition where the comics at the Friars Club would get up and do 10, 15 minutes. And the guys who would book Engelbert Humperdinck, their managers was a man named Lloyd Greenfield. I don't know if you ever remember that name. And if somebody came off the stage, they go, okay, we can give you 2 weeks with Tom Jones in Tahoe. They would book the tour, okay? And I remember a couple of comics in particular who were playing the Catskills who refused to do that, who said, I've given enough to show business where I shouldn't have to audition. And even as a kid, I'm going, where's the problem here? You're not a household name. If there's an opportunity,
Take
you
it.
grab it. So the bitterness that I saw that a lot of people had, and even movie stars, former TV stars, I listen. It must be really hard to have been a household name or a very famous person on a poster or above the title, and now you're not. As a writer, what I've discovered, and this is nothing profound, an audience can detect a fraud. So the movie that I just did with Billy Crystal, I could not have written, nor could he have written 5 years ago, certainly 7 years ago, because it wasn't in our life experience. And I had told an anecdote on the Letterman show. Billy called me up the next day and said, let's do that as an opening scene and let's see where it takes us. And all I'm saying is that we wrote it. My dad saw it. It's really funny. It stars he and Tiffany Haddish. It's called Here Today. And Billy plays an aging comedy writer who's having the onset of dementia. And he's writing a book about his deceased wife. He's having trouble, and he wants to finish the book before he loses his words altogether. He meets Tiffany Haddish. They develop a friendship. She becomes a muse. Okay. And until my father started experiencing dementia, getting it, Billy had an aunt, the same thing. I don't think we could have written from within. There's no jokes about dementia in it. It's handled very, very respectfully. And as a matter of fact, will make you cry. And the jokes that are in there are character jokes. It's not jokes about the affliction. There's not one, oh, I forgot the such and such joke. We do that. And having not experienced it and felt it, I don't think either of us were equipped to write from within until it hit home. So all I'm saying is that I think that, Neil Simon, and you sort of alluded to it earlier when I met Robin, he had once written a piece for the arts and leisure section of the Sunday Times. I guess a play of his was going to open that week. And he said that the comedy writer he described as a two-headed monster. Okay, one head goes through the world, goes to the ATM, gets stuck in traffic, goes to the dentist, and then all of a sudden, without pronouncement or any sort of provocation, another head emerges and sort of is a little bit above this head and makes fun of the life that this head is living and writes it down, okay? And the fact of the matter is, and you admit, I made Robin read that before we got engaged. Yeah, she worked at SNL and she saw what the process was like. But I said, this is who you're going to be married to. We'll be in a car and I'll say, oh, write down Arafat's underwear. I'll know what it means, but write down Arafat's underwear. So the fact is, and if you embrace where you are and you write from that spot, I think it's genuine. I think it comes from a place that you're not pandering. And once again, you're writing from within, looking at that way. So,
there's a respect that you have as a writer that I see through you, that I saw through Garry Shandling by being inspired by Burns and Allen, who came before you. Very interesting to read that section. And that's part of the book, Laugh Lines, that people should wrap your mind around, because people don't seem to understand the trajectory. And I had spoken to a comedian. She came before me. You would know her. I don't want to say on air because she's lovely. And she said, the comics who've come behind me have forgotten me. And she didn't say it in bitterness. She just said, I wish they would see, hey, you want to be in this show with me? Or I'm making a movie. And I thought, oh, wow, because I would just think it was a no-brainer. I would just think she was like, I'm getting, fielding offers left and right. So I wouldn't have thought if I had a movie, oh, let me get her. I would think she's so famous and busy. It's just interesting to see
I think that no matter what level of success you have, there's a certain amount of insecurity. I do think that there's a degree of, as you get older, um, and maybe I would think, as you would, that there are always roles for older people. Somebody's got to play the mother. Somebody's got to play the old postmaster. You know, somebody's got to do that. You know, and I think if the actor or actress ages gracefully and makes an acknowledgement of what their age is, that's very important, as opposed to those Catskill guys with the orange hair. All right, you're fooling nobody. But the fact is, I have the same reverence that you do for what came before us. I look at Second City, and I look at Mike Nichols and Elaine May, and just if you look at almost like a genealogical chart.
Good way of putting it. Yes,
you know,
excellent way.
We do this because they did that. What Garry Shandling and I did was he gave me a book that I have in my study called Say Goodnight, Gracie, and it's about the two of them. And yeah, he broke the fourth wall. He spoke to the camera. Garry and I broke it open. You know, we included the audience. We drove a little car from one set to the other. We made but the fact of the matter is, there was always homage paid. Okay. And I remember Alan King, when he was alive, he was a great storyteller. He used to tell me that about I said, tell me about vaudeville. Tell me about the guys who came. And he would say it with such joy, you know, such joy. I was once writing a script. He was a producer. He had a big deal at MGM, and I was writing a script. He had a pilot that his company was going to produce for MGM, and we were going over the script. And I said, well, what should this set for this scene be? And I described it. I used this much of the page, just describing, okay? Really, the molding, the light, the this and that. And he looked at me and he said, did you ever hear of Block and Sully? I said, no. He said, they were a vaudeville team, okay? He said, they'd stand on stage. They had a cardboard palm tree right behind them, and they'd go, here we are in sunny Spain. Okay. And he goes, okay, you're in Spain. Okay. So he would tell me to, you know, don't keep your sets to yourself. He said, they'll believe whatever you want to. And he would tell me these stories about Buck Henry used to do the same thing too. We lost my buddy Buck Henry, who wrote The Graduate and created Get Smart with Mel Brooks. He would tell me, do you remember the comedy writer Pat McCormick?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Pat McCormick was a huge man. Mm-hmm. He was Carson's guy, and I never met him, but I wanted to learn about him. Tell me about him. And he said that Pat McCormick was the kind of guy, he'd be in a supermarket at the checkout, and he'd say to the cashier, is this enough toilet paper for all this food? Okay.
Oh my God.
And I'm going, more. I become very good friends with Norman Lear, because when I was doing the book tour for Laugh Lines, his son-in-law, John LaPook, who's the doctor on CBS Sunday Morning, he interviewed the two of us, okay? And the theme of the interview was failures, okay? And I'm thinking to myself, all the family, Maude, the Jeffersons, Norman read off a list of shows that he created that got yanked and in no time at all. And I did the same thing, and we were laughing about it. And so we become friends. So I'll ask him. Bill Persky lives in New York. He and Sam Denoff were a great writing team who created That Girl, wrote some of the more memorable Dick Van Dyke Show episodes. And he and I have had some things like you and I are doing online. And I just, tell me more. Tell me more. Become at Carl Reiner from a different way because he's 89. All right. And it's just, to me, Maureen, people have to leave a paper trail. And younger people have to appreciate it. It's like somebody playing for the Yankees and not knowing who Mickey Mantle was.
Oh, I know. I love baseball, and oh, I know. Duffy Dyer, backup catcher to Jerry Good. You know,
Arizona State, and then he was on the Mets '69 World Series thing.
Crane Pool, number 7, first base. Anyway, and I loved. I was very fascinated with the Negro League, and I used to interview some of the players back when I was at Bloomberg. Oh my God!
Wow!
And people have to go to Cooperstown if you haven't been there, even if you don't like. But it's history, people. Freaking history. But my father, God love Huey Langan from the South Bronx. My father's one of the funniest human beings on the planet. And I would sit down and we'd watch, they were reruns for me, but Sid Caesar and Ed Sullivan. And he'd go to me, hey, that one got moxie. You got moxie. You got to have moxie. And I'm like, well, I'm Irish Catholic. What does this mean? I don't know what's happening. But just a real reverence for it. So I grew up around that with him, when the television worked, 6 kids and 8 people in one bathroom. But when it worked, we would watch it. No, you have to have a reverence for it. And I think I watched somebody do this. I wanted to rip their friggin' face off. We would go down to the duplex on Wednesdays. Shout out to Dana Friedman, who's still keeping the open mic alive. And that's where you work out your stuff. And there was a woman, not famous, but was really revered, brilliant mind, had a stroke. Still brilliant mind, just coming out of the left side of her mouth now. Okay. And she left after her set. I saw some young kid who's never been doing comedy for 3 minutes, talking about his dick and fuck every other word. And he starts ripping her apart and mocking her. And I thought, you piece of shit. You don't even know who she is. You don't know how smart she is. You don't know what she has to offer. You're just up there like grabbing your crotch like you're the big swinging thing. And it just made me so angry that he didn't have a respect.
Well, see, that's the thing. It's I think that's a character flaw. I think that no matter what you do, it's trite to say, okay, you have to learn everything there is to learn about it. No. But I think when you and I were talking about process before, we are allowed to do certain things now because people before us invented it. People like Lenny Bruce got arrested for it. George Carlin got arrested for it. So how did this all come about? What is the lineage, okay? And how did we get to here? And anybody who doesn't have that, I'm not saying you've got to be textbook aficionado about it.
Trip Wetzel writing a book about comedy, who, God love him, he's a friar who wrote all these books about comedy. Just a basic respect, even as a human being who came before you. That's all.
Yeah. Who came before you? How did we get to this place? And I just don't. I never had any tolerance for anybody who thinks they invented whatever. You know what I mean?
But I like that you brought up, because it's really important. I just have a couple more questions. You've been so gracious with your time. One of the things that you have to tank, you have to suck sometimes. Things have to not work in order for them to work. You have a successful career, but I would like to read just a little quote from Roger Ebert. Please stand by. Roger Ebert, his review in the book Laugh Lines by Alan Zweibel regarding your movie North. I'm sorry. I hated this movie, hated this movie, hated it. I mean, and then goes on. And then you run into him, Roger Ebert, big movie reviewer, you guys. And you run into him after this hate. You're in a fetal position. You finally come out of it with the help of your wife and your daughter. But you happen to run into him in a restaurant.
I always wondered, because I gave him the power when that review came out. He was arguably the biggest and most influential movie critic of the time. He used the word hate 14 times. And I always wondered, I gave him the power to let it paralyze me. And then when I finally came out of that tailspin, always wondered what it would be like if I ran into him. And for one of my books, I was on book tour. I was in Chicago, where he lived. I think he wrote for this Chicago Tribune or Times. Okay. And I was on book tour, and I was in a restaurant with a couple of people. And over at that table over there, wearing this over this really big sweater that had all the autumn colors on it, like burnt orange and puke green and mustard shit yellow and all that stuff. And I see him, and he gets up and he starts walking, and I excuse myself from my table and I start following him. I have no idea what I'm going to do when I catch up to him. It's almost an out-of-body experience. I'm going, gee, I wonder what Alan's going to do to Roger Ebert. I followed him into the men's room. We're at the sink now, and across the other side of the vanity thing is the wall that has the mirror. So we're washing our hands, and I say into the mirror, Roger, and he's right next to me, and he looks up, and I see it doesn't register who I am. So I go, Alan Zweibel, and the blood drains from his face. And I said, Roger, I just have to tell you that I hate that sweater you're wearing. And he took a look at me. I smiled. He smiled. We both laughed, and we shook hands.
That's gracious. It's hard to be criticized, but that's the only way you can find out who you really are and authentically, is to let people have that opinion. But it's so hard, isn't it?
Well, especially the first few times out, because coming from TV, you're part of a team. Okay, so if they hate something, your name isn't attached to that sketch that they hated. Even when I did its Garry Shandling show, if somebody didn't like an episode, I caught some, I shared the shit with Garry. Okay.
Yeah.
But here, a movie I wrote based on my book. Okay. So the criticism is squarely on me. Okay. So that was a big lesson, because it was embarrassing. We lived in LA, where everybody roots for everybody's failure anyway, and our son would come home. The kids in school were taunting him.
Love this.
He said, Dad, is it okay if we change our last name to Sorkin? And I'm going, Jesus, So we were getting sort of knocked around. But I've read that review myself on TV, on Letterman and some other shows. You just read, it's like, it's a lesson. It's a rite of passage where, okay, if you're going to accept an excessive amount of praise, and if they give you little statues and big applause for it, you've got to be, which is one extreme. You better be prepared, because like I said, Norman Lear, this long list of shows I never heard of.
This is amazing to hear. I did a set outside of California, in Marin County, and Mort Saul was in the audience. This was a couple of years ago. God love him. I come off stage. He doesn't recognize me. He goes, that woman who was just on stage, she's not authentic. I don't believe her. But I feel like I only do what comes from my heart and soul. What's real to me. I go, her, the one that was just up there, I think she kind of believes it. I think, no, it's not truth. Like, yeah, I think it is Tara. No, I thought, yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe she, he doesn't know he's talking to me, and that's how he feels. And you're just like, all right.
Yeah, that's how he feels. But that, if he's talking to you and doesn't recognize you as the person who was just doing that, I'd mark on a curve here. Okay.
Very good. Okay. Bunny. Okay. Your movie's coming out with Billy Crystal, who was your friend when you used to drive into the city from Long Island, the first from day one. Your new movie with him is called Here Today.
Here today.
And when will that be? As my father calls it, in the movie.
We're waiting for, it's all done. And the studio had a decision to make. Do you go straight to Hulu or Netflix? Or now that there's vaccines, do we wait for theaters to open up? We had seen the movie screened in a theater in Pasadena, a rough cut, before COVID. And it was so much fun to have 300 people laugh and cry at the same time. So we're just keeping our fingers crossed that maybe things will ease up a little bit. Can always go on to a streaming service, but this is the kind of movie that should be experienced within a community.
Oh, I can't wait to see it, because I love that pathos and heart and soul and smart and funny. And the other, I saw Bunny, Gilda Radner, a sort of love story back at the Lucille Lortel Theater.
Wow.
Bruno Kirby. And that's when I fell in love with you as a writer. Like that's when you got on.
That's so sweet. Thank you.
And I love the little tree, anyway, tell me, are you doing a reboot of Bunny? You guys, it's fantastic. Are you bringing that back? Is that a rumor?
There are a couple of producers who want to bring it back to the New York stage, and there's a very big production company who's talking to me about making it into a movie. Let's see what happens. There's something universal about the story, even if for younger people who don't know who Gilda was, it's having a platonic love affair that lasts 15 years with somebody, and the quirkiness of it, and there's something that people like thematically about it. So hopefully we'll have another incarnation. It's always playing somewhere. It's always playing in some stage somewhere. But as far as New York is concerned, yeah, there's been more recently people said, hey, why don't we do that? Well, so I said, let's go for it. So we'll see what happens.
And if there's a book, it's just a beautiful love story between Alan and Gilda as friends, and it's incredible. So if you get a chance to see that, and I cannot let you go without giving those writers out there going, Alan, just give me there it is. But yes, there it is. Bunny, Gilda Radner, a sort of love story. Somebody's out there on their couch, and if you don't know Gilda, I'm going to punch you in the face, and you better find out now, or you're dead to me. The other thing is, success sometimes is all, in addition to talent, is sometimes luck and timing. So the writers out there who comedy writing, what's your advice to them? I'm sure it could take 8 years to tell.
Keep writing. Just keep writing. That's what makes you a better writer. Yeah, an opportunity will come along. Mm-hmm. If you persevere, you'll get an agent. If you persevere, that agent will get you an interview. If you persevere, you'll become friends with somebody who gets to star in their own show and asks you to come and write for the show. Opportunity will present itself. Okay, so be prepared when the opportunity comes. When I met with Lauren for the beginning of SNL, I took all the jokes those old guys wouldn't buy from me, and I typed up 1,100 of them, and I was prepared. I had an opportunity. I said, this is what I do. This is who I am. So be prepared. I don't believe that, especially now. Yeah, let's get beyond COVID.
Yeah.
There are enough clubs. There are enough YouTube. There's enough streaming things. There's enough. Somebody is going to be looking for somebody just like you, whoever you are. Just be prepared when they say, "Can I see who you are?" to give them a binder.
Oh, I thought you meant me. Okay. I can't believe you had I can't. That was hurtful. It was like, come close, go away. But Alan's book, I want people to know, please get this book, because it's so wonderful about working with Garry Shandling and SNL and writing, and his wonderful wife, Robin, who I think is just incredible. Laugh Lines, My Life, Helping Funny People Be Funnier, with Alan Zweibel on his website, Alan Zweibel, or at Amazon. You, mister, have spent more time with me than any other guest. I am so grateful.
Maureen, I love talking to you anytime.
All right, my darling. Thank you. Wait, ding, 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 ding. And if you guys missed any of this, go to Patreon, Maureen Langan. You can see the whole thing there once I put it up there. All the best to your grandchildren.
Thank you.
And you know what? You have a love in your heart that just pops through your book. Honest to God, it just comes through, and you can't fake that. So thank you, Alan Zweibel.
Thank you. I'm glad we're friends, Maureen. Take care.
Oh, me too. Thank you, Alan. All right, you guys, there you have it. You are lucky ducks that you got to see this incredible interview today. Honest to God, I'm so honored, because you know what? That man is so freaking down to earth and talented, and we got to have him here with us tonight. Okay, so I'll see you around like a donut. Bye, wig. Mwah.